If your WebRTC application randomly fails in different networks, it's usually not your application's fault. It's about Tern and SunServer. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure Coturn using a DNS or a domain name system so your calls can reliably connect even through strict firewalls. We will start from a brand new VPS to a fully working Tern and Tern server with lots of details and descriptions. So this setup should make well over 99% of the calls connect successfully. Then let's begin. So before we start, I wanted to show you that I have created a Coturn setup guide that I'll publish it inside my GitHub and put the link inside the description section below. So if you feel you can do it by yourself, you simply can read this document and do everything by yourself. There are just simple Linux commands, but if you think you're unfamiliar with Linux and Linux commands and setting up DNS and stuff like that, you can walk through this document with me. First thing to do is that we have to create our VPS. I'm using DigitalOcean to create a new droplet, and since it's for test purposes, I'm using the lowest cost droplet here. Now let's create a known root user with a sudo permission, start a command line prompt. I'm using Windows for that. So we have to SSH to the root of this VPS. I'm gonna copy and paste the URL of it. Simply press enter. Then we wanna write yes. Now it's time to enter the password. I'm gonna copy and paste it here. Okay, let's add the new password because it is a brand new VPS, so we have to change our password. I'm gonna enter my password here. Okay, so the password is changed and I have to log in inside the root again with the new password. Now we are in. So let's add a user, the name of Kale. So let me enter the password of this new user. Press enter for all of it. Let's add sudo permission to the new user, like this, and all other required permissions. Now let's exit from the root and SSH again back inside my VPS using the new user. Great. Now we logged back using new user to our VPS. The next step is to prepare our DNS or a sub DNS. So first thing to do, we need to stable a name for our Tern server. A raw IP address works, but for TLS and Let's Encrypt, we really want a subdomain like turnserver.conf. So to prepare that, we are going to create an A record. If your domain provider doesn't have a feature to create a subdomain or an A record, we have to use Cloudflare to host that subdomain. So you need to sign into your Cloudflare account and then move to the domains and then add the domain here. You can press connect to domain, write your domain here. I'm going to write something dummy, for example. Simply press enter, connect domain anyways, because this domain doesn't exist. So use free plan and then continue to activation. We can add the records later to it. Now you can see it provides you two Cloudflare name servers. You can copy and paste them and put them inside these name servers here. Then save your change. After a few minutes or a few hours, your domain should be hosted by Cloudflare now. So inside the preview, you can see that your status is changed to the active. I'm going to remove this one because I don't need it anymore. Now let's go to my Code with Kale domain here, and inside DNS tabs and inside records, we want to add a new record. So use your custom DNS or sub DNS that you want. For me, it's tern.codewithkale.com, or you can write Tern and it becomes to a subdomain of your main domain, and add the IP address of your server here, and make sure you disable proxies. So you want to use DNS only one, and then press save. So for me, this subdomain exists. I will make it turns, press save. As you can see, a new subdomain is pointing at my VPS IP address now. So if I go back to my SSH terminal now, and if I dig this subdomain, I should be able to see my own VPS IP address. Now that we prepared our subdomain here, it's time to install Coturn and required package in my VPS. We have to run a sudo apt update first. Now we want to install Coturn and Certbot. So Cotern is the main library that we are going to use, and Certbot is for creating a certificate for our Let's Encrypt. Let's stop Cotern service. We want to write this command to make sure that no process is working on port 80. Then we want to create our certificate using this command. It's asking about our email. I'm going to write my Gmail address and press Y for yes. We received the certification. Let's adjust certificate permissions here. Now that Let's Encrypt has created our certificate, we need to make sure Cotern can actually read it. By default, the directory etc Let's Encrypt folder can be quite locked down. Cotern runs as its own user, not as a root user. So if the permissions are too strict, it will fail to load the certs and TLS on port 443 and will never start. So this step is about giving Cotern just enough access to use your TLS certificate safely. Now it's time to set up our turnserver configuration by using sudo nano /etc turnserver.conf. We should be able to see some configurations here. We'll start from the top. The main listening port should be uncommented here, and it's going to be 3478. We don't want to change that. And a TLS listening port, which stands for our security layer Tern server, it should be on 443. So make sure you don't want to run any HTTPS server on this VPS, because lots of HTTPS servers run on port 443. Now let's scroll down a bit, and we don't want to do anything with alternative listening ports. We are looking for our listening IP address. So let's change it to our own IP address, 165.22.19.252. Now let's scroll down. We don't want to set up any auxiliary server, so don't touch that. Let's scroll down. Now it's time to uncomment the external IP address and add it again to your VPS IP address. So 165.22.19.252. Let's scroll down. Here we want to uncomment our minimum port and maximum port, and then we want to uncomment this long-term credential mechanism. But right here I want to use only a simple username and password for that. If you scroll down, you can see type of authentication mechanism, like using auth secret. You can use a static auth secret for your servers, and a bunch of words for your static auth secrets. But for me, a simple username and password works here perfectly. So I'll uncomment user equals to user1 and column password 1. And then let's scroll down again. We don't want to run MySQL databases here. We don't need it. Let's go to the realm, which is the most important point here. We have to add our subdomain here. So tern.codewithkel.com. And now as the last part, we want to add our TLS certifications, which is inside this certification files. I want to uncomment this cert and write my own PIM key here. So it should look like something like this, etc/let's encrypt /live/tern.codewithkale.com /fullchain.pem. And then for the private key, I will uncomment this line and write my private key direction, which is same like my full chain. So let's encrypt /live/tern.codewithkale.com /priv key, which stands for private key. I have a typo here. And if you want to do other stuff like moderating how many calls at a time should go, or max allocations, or no UDP, no TCP, no TLS, you can simply read the other stuff and try it out by changing the variable values and test if any change that you want happens on your own Tern server. So let's press Ctrl and O to save this file and Ctrl and X to exit. So to make sure that Coturn is starting with our new config, we have to run this command. You can copy and paste it from the document that I've provided before. And if you see something that user/bin.turnserver is equals to our Tern server, which is inside etc turnserver.conf, it's running perfectly. So we are setting our turnserver.conf up perfectly. And now it's time to give permission to Cotern to bind on port 443. Using this command, we'll permit the Tern server to use port 443. And if you see some result like this, it's working perfectly. Now let's start and enable our Tern server using these commands. And we simply want to restart Cotern like this and get the status of it. You can see it's active and running. And now let's see if ports 3478 and 443 are running and being occupied by our Tern server. So as you can see, both ports that we were talking about are being used by Tern server. Now everything looks perfect. It's time to test our Sun and Tern server here. To do that, let's open up our browser. Simply inside Google, search test Tern server. Using Trickle Ice, we can test our Sun and Tern server. So in the end, your Sun and Tern servers should look something like this. Let's start with SunServer. I'm gonna add this SunServer here and gather the candidate. So it's a SunServer. Now let's add my Tern servers. So it's a simple UDP Tern server 1 and password 1 as well. So let's gather a candidate using this Tern server. So you can see server reflexive candidates, which is generated using our SunServer, and then our relay candidate, which is for our Tern server. I'm gonna add the Terns config here and remove the other two and gather the candidates. So with the Tern server, we give the browser a fast direct Tern relay over UDP on standard Tern port. But with the Terns, we add a second secure path that hides Tern traffic inside the TLS on port 443, which is the same port as HTTPS. So by combining both type of our Tern and Tern server, we are basically telling our application try the normal Tern first, and if the network is strict, the fallback should be to the HTTPS style Tern path on port 443. Now using this setup, our application can gather host, server reflexive, and relay candidates. And if direct connection fails, it has a reliable path, first over port 3478, and then when the networks are really locked down, tracked inside HTTPS style in port 443. So if you follow this pattern on your own project, you're not just getting a Tern server running, you're building a connection layer that's actually ready for messy network and strict firewalls. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you press the thumbs up button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Till the next video, see you everyone.